Beyond the gates, spoilers tease that Fairmont Crest's most formidable matriarch is about to unravel in ways no one could foresee. At the first blush of dawn, the air around the Hamilton estate hung heavy, laden with tension and unspoken dread. Within the high, arched windows of the drawing room, Dani Dupree sat rigid in an antique armchair, her gaze fixed on the polished marble floor as if willing a crack of revelation to open beneath her. The hush of the household felt unnatural. Maids tiptoed in corridors, the cook's pots simmered in uneasy silence, and even the grand clock on the mantelpiece seemed reluctant to mark passing time. All of them waited, uncertain whether the tempest in their mistress's eyes would herald upheaval or collapse. This morning's rupture began the night before, when word spread through hushed whispers at the Fairmont Country Club. Hayley Lawson Hamilton, the unassuming newcomer with the honeyed laughter and the soft glow of optimism in her eyes, was carrying Bill's child. The announcement had been casual, a gentle toast raised by Bill's lips, to new life and to the future. Yet those few syllables detonated in Dani's mind like shrapnel, ripping apart the last vestiges of calm she so fiercely clutched. In the quiet after the toast, her breath caught as she pictured Bill's hand resting on Hayley's waist, the ease of their closeness. An icy rage anchored itself in her chest, spreading inward until her thoughts flickered like a broken film reel. She would not be replaced. In the elegant stillness of her bedroom, Dani's reflection stared back at her from the gilded mirror, pale and drawn. The elaborate coiffure of the evening before had wilted under the weight of sleepless hours. Strands of chestnut hair clung to her temples like a discarded crown. She tried to steady her breathing, pressing her fingertips to her forehead as if to pin back the storm inside her skull. Every memory of her marriage to Bill, the vows whispered under a canopy of roses, the late-night confessions in candlelit hallways, the children whose laughter had once scripted joy into every corner of their home, recoiled at the notion that another woman's child could usurp her place. She had built her life on love, loyalty, and the quiet authority that came from raising Bill's first two children. How dare this interloper claim a share in Bill's affections in their legacy? As the servants hurried about, delivering tea and fresh towels, Dani retreated down a spiral of thought that grew more tangled with each passing minute. She recalled the day Hayley had arrived in Fairmont Crest, bright-eyed, eager to forge a new career by Bill's side at Hamilton Enterprises. Dani had welcomed her graciously at first, determined to mentor the young professional. But a seed of suspicion sprouted in the fertile soil of Dani's insecurities. Hayley's gentle compliments, her natural rapport with Bill, the way she listened to his every word, none of it felt innocent anymore. At dinner parties, Dani's laughter clanged false, her polite inquiries felt like barbs aimed at Hayley's composure. The world had shifted under her feet, and she sensed the ground giving way beneath her feet. By mid-morning, the tension had built to a combustible peak. Dani's sister, Margot Sinclair, arrived unannounced, bearing the guise of concern. Her voice was syrup-sweet as she greeted Dani, but the question in her eyes was sharp. "You look troubled. Everything all right?" Dani forced a serene smile, though her heart hammered like a war drum. "I'm fine," she said, voice brittle. "Just the usual worries." Margot's brow arched. "Worries? About Bill? About the house? You can tell me." Dani's pulse jolted. She had come too far to confide even in her closest kin. Yet the knot in her throat uncoiled as words poured out in a torrent. "Hayley's pregnant. She's having his baby." The accusation wasn't a question, it was an indictment carved in ice. Margot's eyes flicked toward the hallway where Hayley would soon arrive for Sunday luncheon. "Is that confirmed?" she asked, carefully. Dani's lip quivered. "It doesn't matter. She's lying or she's not telling the truth. I won't stand for it." In that moment, an unspoken accord bound the sisters, one of fear and wounded pride. Margot placed a gentle hand on Dani's arm, offering false comfort. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Perhaps a private conversation with Hayley would clear things up." But Dani's vision blurred with rage. She knew that any talk would be an apology or a tearful plea from Hayley, and she vowed she would not grant forgiveness. As the clock chimed noon, the bright sun waded through the tall windows, casting golden beams across the parlor where Hayley poised herself across from Dani and Bill. The tables were set with fine china, orange blossoms scented the air. Hayley, in a lavender silk dress that accentuated the curve of her growing belly, looked radiant, unaware of the hostilities glinting behind Dani's composed exterior. Bill offered her a warm smile. "Hayley, dear, I'm glad you could join us." The tone was tender, but it felt like salt in Dani's open wound. When Hayley met Dani's cool gaze, the younger woman's brow lifted in tentative greeting. "Mrs. Dupree, thank you for having me." Her voice carried a melody of deference. Dani rose, chair scraping softly against the hardwood. She held Hayley's gaze too long, her eyes dark as storm clouds. "Congratulations," she said, each syllable clipped. "I hear you're expecting." There was an edge of steel beneath her civility. Hayley's smile trembled. "Yes," she replied softly. "I found out last week. Bill and I are thrilled." Her hand swept to her stomach in a protective gesture. Dani's breath stuttered, rage boiling up. "Thrilled?" she repeated. "Oh, you'll be thrilled all right." Hayley's expression tightened. She glanced at Bill, whose knuckles whitened as he gripped the edge of the table. "Dani," he began, but she cut him off. Pushing aside her napkin, she stepped forward, voice low and tremulous. "I want the truth," she hissed. "Did you know about this before I did? Were you planting doubts?" Hayley recoiled, shock and hurt washing her features. I don't understand." Dani's eyes burned. "Don't play coy. You and Bill have been sneaking around. I saw the messages. The late-night meetings. How long has this been going on? How long have you been lying to me?" Her hand lashed out before thought could rein her in, striking Hayley's cheek with a startling crack. The room fell silent as Hayley's face bloomed red. The gasp that escaped Bill was drowned by the crash of silverware as he leapt up, seizing Dani's arm. "Stop," he roared, voice echoing through the parlor like thunder. Dani wrenched free, eyes glinting with defiance. "No, he lied to me." "You lied to me," she spat, pointing at Hayley who stood trembling, one hand to her stinging cheek. Margot hurried forward, placing herself between the two women, voice urgent and unnervingly calm. "Dani, please. This isn't the way." But Dani shook her head, tears of fury and humiliation streaking down her cheeks. "Oh, I think it is exactly the way." In that charged silence, the staff, hidden just beyond the archway, floated forward, their pale faces masks of dread. The crash of a candlestick on the floor, Bill's frantic apologies, Hayley's soft whimper, all wove into a tapestry of betrayal and heartbreak. Dani's chest heaved as the gravity of her actions settled. She saw the fear in Hayley's eyes, the disbelief in Bill's. For a fleeting heartbeat, remorse flickered across her countenance, but it was quickly smothered by the instinct to protect what she believed was hers alone. Seconds stretched into an eternity before Hayley, voice barely above a whisper, gathered her composure. "I'm sorry," she said, her words fragile as porcelain. "But I did not deserve that." Dani's gaze flicked to Bill, who sank to his knees at Hayley's side, checking her for injury. "Hayley, please forgive me," he pleaded. "It's me who's at fault." Dani retreated a step, chest tightening. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, gilding the shards of their fractured peace, revealing all too clearly the lines of a war that had erupted in the sanctuary of home. The air tasted of iron and shattered trust. As Hayley and Bill retreated to the nursery, Dani's haven of motherhood now tainted by her rage, Dani stood amidst overturned chairs and scattered silverware, her heart pounding like a war drum. The echo of her own slap resounded in her mind. Each breath felt jagged. She closed her eyes, pressing her palms to her temples as if to still the whirlwind in her mind. The truth was unbearable. Hayley's pregnancy threatened her identity, her place in Bill's life, and the future she had meticulously crafted. In her desperation, she had become the very monster she feared. In the hush that followed, only Margot remained at her side, a hand on her shoulder that felt both comforting and poisonous. "We'll fix this," Margot whispered, voice smooth. Behind her, Dani's gaze flickered back to the shattered parlor, the wounded pride so exposed. She realized with a sinking clarity that there was no turning back from the violence she had unleashed. The veneer of civility was gone, replaced by raw wounds that would fester unless she fought tooth and nail to reclaim her place. The war for Bill's heart, for her role as mother and matriarch, had officially begun, and Dani Dupree, though wounded, would not go down without a ferocious fight. Dawn found the Hamilton estate cloaked in an uneasy hush. Within the grand foyer, Dani Dupree sat at the foot of the sweeping staircase, shoulders hunched, eyes distant. The events of the previous afternoon, the slap, Hayley's stunned retreat, Bill's frantic apologies, had shattered every carefully constructed certainty she'd ever held. But there was no time for remorse now. The echo of her own hand striking Hayley's cheek reverberated in her mind like a war drum urging her onward. There was only one path forward if she was to reclaim her place at Bill's side and protect the marriage she cherished. Bill Hamilton, meanwhile, paced the terrace above, phone pressed to his ear as he coordinated first aid for Hayley and called in a private security detail. His heart ached at the memory of Hayley, pale and frightened, clutching her swollen belly as she reassured their children that everything would be all right. He could not bear the thought that Dani's breakdown might endanger Hayley or the life growing within her. Yet he also knew that Dani's pain, however misdirected, sprang from a place of love and fear, and beside that, his devotion to Dani remained unshaken. By mid-morning, Bill had summoned both women to the library. The room's massive windows overlooked manicured grounds, but inside it felt stifling, charged with tension. Hayley sat, gloved hands folded neatly in her lap, lips pressed into a resolute line. She wore a tailored sheath dress in lavender, the color fading beneath her pallor. Across from her, Dani's movement was like that of a wounded animal. Furtive, twitching, each breath controlled as if bracing against panic. Bill rose, voice hushed but firm. "I brought you both here so we could speak openly, calmly." He glanced at Dani. "I owe you an apology, Dani. I never wanted you to feel sidelined." Dani's jaw clenched, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. Beside her, Margot's absence left her utterly alone, her usual ally nowhere to be found. "You knew," she whispered, voice ragged. "You knew about the pregnancy before I did." Bill closed his eyes. "It wasn't a secret. I was waiting for the right moment to tell you both together." Hayley's gaze flicked to Dani, sympathy pooling in her eyes. "I'm sorry you felt betrayed," she said softly. "That was never my intention." A tense silence followed. Dani's mind raced. Could she believe Hayley's gentle sincerity? Or was this another ploy to share Bill's affections? The very thought made her pulse thunder. She looked at Bill, her partner of a decade, and saw in his expression only love and regret. It both calmed and enraged her. Slowly, she forced herself to nod. "Fine," she said, voice low. "I want the truth. All of it." Bill exhaled, relief evident. "Hayley and I discovered this together," he began. "We've been trying for 6 months. I wanted to confirm everything before I brought it up." Hayley reached out, fingertips trembling, and covered Dani's hand. For a moment, the gesture held the fragile promise of reconciliation. Then Dani pulled away, the bond severed by anxiety and wounded pride. "You think that justifies it?" she asked. "You think I'd be okay with waiting while you planned your little announcement?" Hayley's lip quivered. "I never meant to hurt you." Dani's head whipped up. "Then why didn't you say anything sooner?" In that question lay the full weight of her terror, that Hayley had deliberately hidden this pregnancy to win Bill's sympathy, to edge Dani out forever. Bill intervened gently. "You both have valid points," he said. "But we have to move forward. Dani, I love you. You're the mother of my children and my wife. Nothing will change that." Dani's gaze locked on him, searching for any sign of wavering. Finding none, she leaned back, hollow and exhausted. "All right," she whispered. "We move forward. But on my terms." The resolute set of her shoulders told Bill she meant every word. In the days that followed, Dani withdrew into a strict regimen: legal consultations, private counseling sessions with a renowned marital therapist, and daily debriefs with her closest friend, Elena Chase, who had arrived as a self-appointed crisis manager. Elena's whispered guidance: how to frame Dani's public image, how to maintain control in interviews, how to ensure Hayley's role remained secondary, became Dani's arsenal. Every frame of surveillance footage at the estate was analyzed for signs of collusion. Every message between Bill and Hayley scrutinized for hidden intent. Dani's suspicion deepened. If they had lied about the timing, what else were they hiding? Hayley, for her part, found sanctuary in quiet walks through the gardens behind the estate, hand resting over her belly as she whispered lullabies. Yet, even in those moments, she felt eyes upon her, judging, calculating. She confided in the nanny, who had watched the slap from just beyond the hallway, and in Bill's teenage daughter, Chelsea, who alone bridged the gap between the two women with the innocence of youth. In whispered conversations, Hayley found solace: the conviction that Dani's attack had been fueled by fear rather than malice. She resolved to approach Dani with compassion, even as the prospect of extended proximity made her heart race. Bill struggled to hold his fractured family together. At night, he lay awake between two worlds: one defined by his lifelong love for Dani, the other by his burgeoning role as a father once more. He juggled hospital visits to monitor Hayley's health with urgent strategy meetings to preserve his marriage. He negotiated boundaries: daily check-ins with Dani, private ultrasound viewings with Hayley, and family dinners where civility was enforced by mutual respect rather than genuine warmth. Each negotiation felt like walking a tightrope above a pit of resentment. Publicly, Dani maintained a veneer of strength. Behind the cameras at charity events, she stood tall beside Bill, congratulating Hayley on her expanding future. But in interviews, she launched pointed defenses of her family's legacy, emphasizing the sanctity of marriage and the primacy of firstborn heirs. The local press, ever hungry for scandal, parsed every word, spinning narratives of a woman scorned, a marriage in peril, and an interloper threatening domestic bliss. Dani's carefully cultivated reputation as a matriarch was both her shield and her prison. She could not show weakness, yet her heart was fractured. Rumors began to swirl of a possible legal separation, though Bill vehemently denied them in a statement. "Our family is navigating a deeply personal matter with love and respect. We ask for privacy as we welcome our new child and nurture our existing bonds." The statement placated the tabloids briefly, but Dani's next public appearance, a gala honoring Hayley's philanthropic initiative for maternal health, laid bare her conflicted loyalties. Standing at Hayley's side, Dani forced smiles that didn't reach her eyes, balancing gratitude for Hayley's charity with a simmering possessiveness. This event should have been hers. In the hush of private consultations, Dani's therapist urged her to face her fear. "You feel replaced, but there's room in Bill's life for both of you. The real enemy is not Hayley or her child, but the insecurity that tells you otherwise." Dani bristled at the implication. Her identity was bound inextricably to her role as Bill's partner. Could she truly share that with someone else? The notion felt like self-betrayal. Meanwhile, Hayley's pregnancy complications began to emerge: bouts of dizziness, frightening bleedings that sent her to the hospital at odd hours, where Bill would remain at her side, while Dani was left to manage the household without explanation. These medical crises forged a grudging truce. Dani realized that Hayley's health, and her babies were now matters of paramount importance. In one midnight crisis, when Hayley's hemorrhage threatened both lives, Dani was summoned to the ICU. There, as she watched the medical team attempt to stabilize Hayley, something in her broke the cycle of jealousy, the elemental bond of motherhood, the vulnerability of bringing life into the world. She found herself whispering prayers for Hayley's safety and feeling genuine relief when the monitors steadied. That night, after Hayley was moved to a private recovery suite, Dani approached her with a pitcher of water and a small bouquet of orchids. Her voice was hushed, earnest. I'm sorry, she said, eyes brimming. Hayley looked up, startled, the machines humming softly. I know you're scared, Dani continued, but I want to be here for you. For both of you. Hayley's gaze softened, a tentative bridge forming. Thank you, she whispered. In that moment, the two women found a fragile common ground in the shared miracle and peril of new life. But old wounds remained raw. Bill watched this rapprochement with cautious hope, knowing that true healing would require more than apologies and joint hospital visits. It would demand that Dani confront her deepest fears, that love cannot be parceled out, that the heart has the capacity to expand. And it would require Hayley to trust that forgiveness was possible even after violence. As the estate's ancient oaks cast long shadows across the lawn, Dani began drafting an open letter to the staff and friends, an unprecedented act of vulnerability in her otherwise controlled life, acknowledging her actions, expressing regret, and pledging her support for Hayley's well-being. She knew the blowback could be fierce, but also that authenticity might rebuild trust. Hayley, in turn, composed her own message of reconciliation, offering forgiveness, but also setting boundaries to protect her and her child from future harm. In the days to come, the real test would arrive, a combined family celebration for Hayley's baby shower, hosted at the estate's conservatory. Bill planned the gathering as a symbol of unity. Children would play among the fountains, friends would toast to new beginnings, and guests would witness the Hamilton family's resilience. But beneath the surface, Dani's anxiety roiled, Hayley's cautious optimism wavered, and Bill's optimism trembled on the verge of either triumph or collapse. What awaits them next is uncertain. Will Dani's act of contrition open a pathway to genuine sisterhood, or will old jealousies resurface in the glow of new motherhood? Can Bill balance his devotion to both women with the wisdom to guide them through this crucible? And will Hayley's trust in Dani, and in love itself, prove stronger than the scars of that one unforgivable moment? Only time will unveil whether the bonds of marriage and motherhood in Fairmont Crest can stretch to embrace a miracle unforeseen, or whether they will snap under the pressure of fear and pride, casting all three into an abyss from which there may be no return.